Casey Brown, welcome to the Beyond Tax Season podcast. I've been following you. I don't know how I stumbled on that TED Talk. I've listened to it so many times now that I don't cry. But it was that it hit me in my core. So, and I show it to people. So I know you're probably tired of even hearing about it, but was that what launched it for you?
No, in fact, the TED Talk was already 5 years into me running my own business, and I had noticed this trend that I talk about in the TED Talk of some of the challenges with underpricing, and that having been 5 years working on this with businesses, realizing those kind of trends, I thought there's something here, there's a bigger message. So it was definitely a big moment, and I'm a person who had always dreamed of having given a TED Talk. So when the chance came along, I was delighted to have it. But it was already really, I was well on my way already of being really deeply entrenched in the beliefs that I hold, which is if you're excellent at what you do, you ought to be paid like you're excellent. And the mission driven element of the way I view pricing, which is really about accepting mediocre pay for excellent work is unjust and it robs you of resources. And so there's a lot of, and you hear this if you watch the TED Talk, a lot of justice orientation in my work. It's about dollars and cents for sure, but that's not enough to put me on the road missing my kids or hop on podcast after podcast. It's really about a bigger why.
What's the bigger why?
Just that. If you deliver excellence to your customers and you deliver excellent products and services to your customers and you accept mediocre pay, then you're robbing yourself and every single person that counts on you of the resources that are rightfully yours. And I think about what good can be done in the world when people are paid fairly for their excellence, how that can bless their families and communities, the good they can do in the world. And instead that's sitting in somebody else's bank account who I don't know about their motives. You don't know about their motives, but we know about ours. And our clients tend to be privately held, best in class companies run by very high integrity, highly moral people. And I would rather see the money sit in their pockets.
Awesome. Awesome. You've never said that before.
Not exactly that way, but yeah, for sure. Of course, I've talked about it. It's really important to me. It's really dear to me because this is the
Right.
biggest way, from a leverage perspective. I think this work is the biggest difference I can make in the world.
Right. Well, the TED Talk again, that's where we met, and we didn't meet where I became aware of you.
Mhm.
Uh, and working with accountants, you had an equation there,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah. Because
accountants love equations.
I'm an engineer. So for anybody listening, thinking, "Who's this woo-woo crazy lady talking about value and justice?" I'm just a math person. Well, so am I. I'm an engineer. I'm a chemical engineer by training. I love math. I love spreadsheets. Excel is my jam. Yeah, I like equations, and so the equation I presented in that talk is um, define plus tell equals earn. And it's really the short version of this is that in order to be paid what you're really worth, you have to really clearly define and understand the value that you're specifically creating. And if you're an employee, this means to your employer and its customers. But if you are a business owner, this means to or a front-facing salesperson, this means to your customers. How do you really solve problems for them? What unique value do you bring? What unique issues are you able to solve that other people don't solve in the same way you solve them, and so forth. That's step one. But value and absence of communication is a recipe for getting underpaid. So a really important step two of that process is making sure that you clearly communicate and defend that value to customers. And specific to the CPA world, I think this is where we sometimes fall short because it's not necessarily, and there's exceptions, right? There's a bell curve in any population, and so there's extreme ends. But I would say generally speaking, and we've done a lot of work in the CPA space, there's a group of folks that does not, love, tooting their own horn and bragging about how great they are.
What specific instances or methodologies of exhibiting or demonstrating that value have you been able to bring to the that linear, granular, cynical, historical based personality type?
Hmm. Well, I'm going to answer the question slightly different than you asked it, if that's okay. I would say there are some. There are certain sort of psychographic commonalities that I've seen with CPAs, and again, there's some other technical seller doers that fall into this same bucket. Like if you're an engineering consulting firm, I see the same kind of things a lot of times from engineers that I see from CPAs. But there is, first of all, the comfort and the preference for a really math-driven approach to pricing. Like, give me the formula. This is going to take this many hours, or I have to prepare this many returns, or I have this many assets that I have to, we want to be very formulaic because anything else feels too gray. And as soon as we get into gray, we start to feel concerned that maybe it's unfair or we're taking advantage of someone, or or even if we're not, even if that isn't our intention, that the result could be that it's very difficult to defend. It's an indefensible position if we can't point to the math of the exact what's behind our price. And the reality is, and having spent lots of time helping people who sell lots of different kinds of products and services, is pricing and negotiation is gray. And if you ignore that reality, then it's going to cost you a lot of money, because you can bring a very fair, defensible position to the table, and the customer may say, well, that's a lot more than I was paying my last CPA. And, I am certainly willing to pay you more, but I can't pay you that. And could you do it for X? And we're bringing our facts and our figures and our numbers and our certainty, and we assume they're also bringing certainty. But the reality is, customers don't always tell the truth or the whole truth when they're negotiating.
Mm.
Negotiating is part art and part science. And so some of the things that I share and encourage CPAs to think about is just to, in the right way, bring just a little bit of skepticism, a healthy skepticism to the things you're being told by your customers. Not that to, call your customers a bunch of filthy liars or anything, but the reality is it's not in their best interest to say, wow, geez, I've got 4 other quotes and you are by far the cheapest. But they're not going to say that stuff. So the idea that customers sometimes curate information they share with us can come as a bit of a shock to the CPA crowd. And that's one of the things I offer as why we shouldn't get so stuck in the numbers and in the math. One other thing, and there's more, but I'll just stick to these 2 for purposes of brevity. I actually have a blog that I wrote about this very topic, and I talk about 4 different characteristics. So if it's all right with you, I'll send you that link after, and I don't know if you do show notes, but happy to send that blog, and it's got more detail about some of the things I'm talking about. But the second one that I wanted to mention now is the very qualities that make someone an excellent CPA in terms of their analytical firepower and their high level of cognitive ability and their attention to detail and the ability to dive into numbers with gusto and come out with the right story that is, tax compliant and saves their customers money. This really rigorous attention to detail and numbers driven thinking can be almost the opposite skill set of what is necessary when we're sitting across from a customer presenting our value and they're challenging on us. And it tends to be the case that a lot of folks in this industry aren't super comfortable with a lot of conflict. They'd rather not get into all the negotiating. They just want to get that part done because the selling part of the job is the thing they enjoy the least, and they just want to get back to doing the work. And so sometimes people will accept a lower price just to make the pain end of the negotiation so they can get back to it. And so a second piece of advice I would offer to the crowd listening is, how can you build some muscle around discomfort with that conflict, that recognize that some people, beat you up on price because it's a game for them. My older brother's this kind of guy. He loves to negotiate. He loves to wheel and deal. There is not a number you could tell him that would be low enough for him. He's going to ask you for a discount every time. Doesn't mean doesn't value you. Doesn't mean he's going to go away. But so that's again, back to have more healthy skepticism, get a little bit more comfortable with some of the discomfort of the negotiation process. And both of those things will make you a pile of money.
How do you do that? How do you? I worked with a marketing coach. I'll share his name here, Tom Poland, and we did some deep dives on, what truly is the way to talk to CPAs and what is their pain, and we came up with Trow. The problem is you can never teach a cat to bark.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't use that because it sounds so disrespectful. But you're asking them to bark.
Sure.
Uh, what exercise or
Mhm. Yeah.
transplant do they? We're talking about them like they're some other
Yeah.
thing, right?
Other,
And
yeah.
I,
No,
I'll
again,
use
I'm
a
an engineer. I'm
I'll use a
sympathetic.
first name, but not a last name. Rachel recognizes she needs to raise her prices and she needs help doing it. And I look around for coaches that are pricing specific,
Mhm.
and they all just say the same thing: just raise your prices because you're valuable.
Yeah.
They don't go to that period, that place of exercising a muscle around being
Sure.
discomfort or being uncomfortable.
Well, it's because you've got to exercise the muscle. In other words, there's not an answer, there's not a silver bullet, there's not a read this thing and it's going to fix you because you are trying to teach a cat to bark, right? Now, when I say that, what I mean is it is unlikely that even with investing in the practice and the exercises and the building of the muscles, that you're going to turn an otherwise introverted, uncomfortable with conflict CPA into tomorrow's superstar natural born salesperson, right? I don't want anybody to ever do what they does not feel authentic to them. I talk about this in the TED Talk. It's really important to stay authentic to your own personality and style because if you don't, you will reek of desperation and salesiness, which customers are allergic to. So we cannot do that. So I'm not trying to make anybody take 100-mile journey here. It's like, what's the 1 mile journey that we can take? And it is really about like somatically experiencing the practice. And so, an example of this, you said specifically tactically. So we do training programs for sales teams and other people who are not sales people but who sell, like CPAs. And if anybody wants any information on that, they can reach out. But our programs are not about here's these things to know. It's here's these things to do. Because this
Mm.
has to be about practice. It has to be about role play. It has to be about keeping a log of every time you like. So that's one of the pieces of advice we have when we say pay more attention, bring more healthy skepticism. When you hang up with a customer, make a habit of asking yourself, what is anything that customer told me that I think might not be 100% true. I don't know. It might be true. It might, but if they said I got 3 other quotes and they're a lot lower, that might be true. It might not. Write down anything you're not certain that you do not have the ability to be certain is true and keep a log of that. If you get in the habit of doing that after every sales call and you build this body of statements customers make, which might be true and might not, that will begin to build that muscle of a little bit more skepticism. And so
Mm.
then that's step one. Step two is then once you start to have a little bit of skepticism and they say, I've got several other quotes that are lower, then you're ready for step two, which is what are the questions you ask them when they say that, that helps you uncover if they're really a good fit for you or not, if those prices are really lower or not. Even if they're lower, they're not the same quality service and excellence you provide, right? But until it even dawns on us that they might not be telling the whole truth, that the tactics are useless. We have to retrain mindset here, right? That's on the first one. And there's more, but I'm trying to keep it brief just to give one or two tactical examples on
Yeah,
how
yeah.
to
Well,
build the.
and I understand the brevity, and this is not meant to be a discourse. But let's be a little more clear. You kind of ran right through that. Let's talk about what resources can people reach out to get from you.
Oh,
What?
sure. Yeah, please. Great. Thank you. We have a 10-week cohort program, which anyone can join. It's 1 hour per week. So we're not talking about a massive time lift. It's an hour a week for 10 weeks where we are engaging in teaching some of these skills and then importantly, practicing these skills to build the muscle. And you can reach out to us, find that on boostpricing.com. That's boost, like the energy drink, pricing.com. We also have a pricing community. And so this is a place for people to come and, express frustration or, get, advice about confidence building tactics or share wins or ask questions. Hey, I have a big proposal coming up tomorrow. And so there is both, there I have access to me and my team, but they also have access to other business owners and leaders that sell in both the professional services spaces as well as products. So that's at fearlesspricing.com. So fearlesspricing.com. boostpricing.com. I also will say I put out a lot of free resources on LinkedIn. I make a lot of videos and write blogs, and you can subscribe for free at boostpricing.com. So we certainly have products that we can sell folks that want the support, but we also have a commitment to putting out a lot of free resources so that any business of any size that wants to get better at this, we want to help them.
Excellent.
Oh, and one more, I suppose I have, the this book, Fearless Pricing,
I,
available everywhere books are sold, and you can get the Kindle version for under
I,
$10. So
I,
we have a solution at every price point, Trow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Perfect, perfect. So, what did you just trip across? Oh, what you tripped across was this is the time of year when they're writing their new annual engagement agreements.
Mm-hmm.
And
Perfect
a
timing.
classic habit is just to send them out with a 3 or 5% annual increase without having. I brought call him a thought leader from the UK, James Ashford. He wrote the book Selling to Serve and then created a whole proposal system that was granular and pricing by the services provided. And he had a process where you go through it with the client.
Mm-hmm.
None of this, we have three packages thing. It's
Yeah,
custom price. This is what you need.
yeah,
And he addresses the pricing thing very, very upfront.
yeah,
Don't blame me for asking, but absolutely not.
yeah, yeah, 100%. I
Yeah.
think, boy, there's so much there. That's a very rich comment. One thing I would say that I really like and agree with is the idea that packages are way overused. They're very overused, and people got some idea somewhere that it's a good idea to present three options, and some people pick the middle one. And to be clear, human beings, buyers, we love choice. Choice is very exciting to us. We get a little dopamine hit. Oh, let me understand this one versus this one versus this one. But the reality is, they're coming to you as their CPA because you are the expert in their needs. And if you ask the right questions and you do enough discovery on their business or their personal situation, their real estate, their gifting, whatever the heck, all the stuff, then you know what they need. And proposing a whole bunch of options feels a little bit to me like abdicating your responsibility to be their guide. You're,
Hello.
you're
Yep.
just letting
Yep.
them pick here's a buffet of food. Do you want the chicken or do you want the steak? No, let me be your guide here. Don't abdicate your role in shepherding them to the solution that they actually need. And I think you can do this in ways that still leave the door open in case you're way over budget. Like if they say, well, that's a lot more, in case we have other ways we can serve you. Certainly, if you feel like we've missed the mark in terms of scope or this is beyond budget, we can look at how we can peel some of this back and still deliver a great service for you. But to just drop your price as soon as they say it's outside the budget costs you tons of money. It also kills trust, by the way, because then they feel like you were trying to get away with something in the first place. If they have to give up something
Oh,
to
that's so
cover
key.
price,
That's so key. And what in the selling to serve go proposal ecosystem, it's okay. That's fine. So we'll put that on the roadmap because you do need it, but
right?
you can't
We
afford it
won't
right. You don't
include it.
want to afford it right now. We'll just
Right.
put it out here and review it quarterly, annually. As
Mm-hmm.
uh, I, it's that courage thing. I have another client. I can't use her name because it's so unique that people
Yeah.
say, "Oh,
People would
I know who
know
that is."
exactly who she is. Yeah.
uh, but she said, well, because I coached her and she's grown her firm amazingly um, through value pricing, through standing
Right.
her ground.
Yep.
And she came back and said, you have to be willing to lose the client.
That's 100% right. And you mentioned the word courage, and that gets at the second tactic I hinted at but never got a chance to share. And it's the thing every person on this planet hates doing, but it is incredibly valuable, which is role playing. Role playing. Grab your neighbor, grab your spouse, grab your son, grab your assistant and say you're going to be this client and this is what their mindset is, and you can and then you say the words out loud and you say, and then you ask them to practice giving you a beating you up on price, and then you do. It's uncomfortable, it's awkward, it's cheesy, we feel awful doing it. I acknowledge nobody enjoys it, but I think you enjoy making a lot less money than you're worth even less. And I like in role play too, like if you've ever been a passenger in a car that somebody else was driving and you weren't paying that much attention to the drive and you're going somewhere you've never been before. By the time you get to the destination, if you had to reproduce that drive on your own, you'd be very unlikely to be able to do it. You'd get lost along the way, you'd never get there. And then if you say, okay, let's imagine a second scenario in which you switch places with the driver. It's still an unfamiliar drive to you, but you're actually driving the car. And the person in the passenger seat is saying, turn left up here after the church, and you're going to swing right after this big elm tree. And you've actually used your muscles and your brain and your feet and your hands to get that car to that second destination or to that destination. If you had to reproduce that drive a second time, you'd be significantly more likely to be able to do it. And I think that's the difference between getting a coach telling you about courage and a coach or a trainer or a book and actually doing it. And now just to tie that to the other advice that she had, which I think is incredibly important, you have to be willing to lose the wrong kind of clients. If you aren't, you will be do not price to keep your worst clients. They will underpay you and they will pull your whole confidence down. Also, then your client roles you won't have space. You won't have any capacity for customers that do value you. Instead, you've got customers that don't value you, that suck up disproportionate organizational resources, don't pay you on time, are difficult to deal with. Don't let those guys bother the competition. Let them become alumni of the organization.
Hey, it's so poignant because I got a meeting today with a client that we're basically saying, but we got to finish one last piece of work. And the managing partner and the owner of the firm, managing partner or firm manager, call it that, didn't know the client. It's a new relationship because it's a merged firm. And he said, let me get this straight. They're creating chaos. Then no, we don't want them. We don't have room or time for chaos.
No.
Yeah.
And however much you think it is, it's bigger. Whatever the cost to serve of those customers is, you think it's twice. It's
Yeah.
very painful to work with the wrong clients. And it's an ironic truth that many of the most price sensitive customers are the most demanding, not the ones that pay you the best. Oftentimes the ones that pay you the best are the easiest clients to have.
Right.
They
Right.
really understand partnership.
So I understand role play, but I've been selling the invisible for over 4 decades. So
Okay.
I've got my way of approachings, and I look at it as, and it's not about me, but I'm going to lead to I have an uncomfortable spot that I'd like some
Okay.
help with right
All
here.
right. Let's do it.
Um, so I like to cast. I like a net, not a rifle. Let's make sure we get everything here, and we're herding everybody right up to like an inevitable answer.
Hmm.
So I learned a tool. One of my coaches shared it. It called it the context discussion. And it's the classic, where are we now? Where are we trying to get to? What have you tried that worked, that didn't work? Why is this important now?
Yeah.
And what's it costing you? Now, the costing you is easy for an accountant,
Yeah.
as long as we're just talking about the numbers. What is it costing you emotionally? I'm uncomfortable in that spot. I don't really know how to
How to
tease,
ask that.
because I just create my net so much it makes it logically, you
Hmm.
know. Again, I'm an accountant by training, and I
Sure.
love working with engineers because you can't give them too much information.
Right.
So, but help me with that last little piece, because that emotional that's a tough spot.
Yeah.
And
I understand. I
and
understand totally.
the next step is, uh, what would be a over the top outlandish price.
Yeah.
I learned this anyway. I forget where I learned it exactly, or where he learned it and brought it. But help me with that.
Yeah.
Those two pieces are uncomfortable for me.
Okay.
Being out there, living in the emotion,
Yep.
and making them feel it, and then saying, what price would be too high?
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
are two pieces that if I had that and I could teach that, I'd have much more successful clients.
Okay, well let's tackle the first one. So, first, the importance of this, why this matters, is that, and I'm a brain science geek. I love learning about the science that governs the way we make decisions, the neurology, the neurochemistry, the psychology, the behavioral economics, all that stuff. It's so fascinating to me.
What kind of economics?
Behavioral economics.
Okay.
So why, how our humanness shows up in our economic decisions.
Okay.
Um, and what the research supports is that most decisions are made from a place of emotion and then justified to ourselves based in fact. So the emotional feeling I get when you're speaking to me about this is, oh my gosh, this guy sees my frustration. He sees my pain. He sees how irritated I've been and how hard this has been for me. And he's giving me a lifeline out of all this pain because he's going to fix this problem. And I make a decision based in pain. And then what do I tell people when they say, why did you hire this guy? Oh, I say, well, he's got this such and such, and here's his process, and here's his team, and here's his, we decide on emotion and we justify with facts. And I'm talking you and me too. And we're both pretty analytical people.
I got it, Casey.
So I'm
But
gonna go into the why, but the reason I say
but
this,
I've heard that forever, and I still didn't get it in. So help me get
oh
it
yeah,
in.
that's the how. I'm moving to the how. But listen, you might already believe this, but some of your listeners don't believe that the emotion is important. And I'm
Right.
telling you the numbers, the data, the science says it is. So trust that it
Okay.
is.
Okay.
Okay, great. If we trust that it is, how do we do it? I think it's again back to something I already said, which is you have to do something in a way that is authentic to you. And
Hmm.
so if it feels too intrusive, too personal, too weird to be like, well, how did that affect you emotionally? What were the costs to you emotionally? Is there a different way to get at that is a little less far, a little closer, a little nearer? And an example, like somebody says, why is this important? What does that cost you? And they tell you about the dollars, and you say, you lost $500,000 on that. How'd that feel? Just how'd that feel? Doesn't have to use, you don't have to use the word emotion because it can weird people out. How'd that feel? Or you could even say, man, I bet that felt awful. Just leave space. I bet that felt tough. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine how you must have felt. And then leave silence. Use the word feeling or felt or how, I can't imagine how that must have felt. And then count to 10 Mississippi in your head without saying a word, and they will talk about how it felt. Because I made an example from my own business. I made a terrible hire once. It cost me $500,000 through a series of unfortunate events. And I will tell a stranger on the bus how that felt if they ask me. Because it is that pain is very real to me. So if you say, how'd that feel? Oh my gosh, that must have been tough. You don't even have to say the word feel. That must have been tough. I think those kind of just entry points to just kick the door open a little bit. You don't have to feel like you're asking them that you want to be their therapist. You're empathizing. They've been through something, right? This business, that was a cost to the business. Another thing that you can do, if even saying how'd that feel or that must have been tough, feel too uncomfortable, too far. If we're baby stepping here, an even babier step could be, tell me a little bit more about that. Can you tell me a little bit more? Can you tell me more about that? You should ask that at least 3 times, especially if you think you're scratching up against some emotion, because the emotion is where the gold is.
Do you have flashcards?
No, not yet, but maybe I'll make a set. I have a question arsenal I built. I'll put it on the list of stuff to send.
Excellent. So does David A. Fields. He wrote a book called The Irresistible Consultant's Guide to Winning Clients.
Hmm.
And it's talking to the people like you and me,
Hmm.
where we have to climb the stair step of credibility.
Yeah,
Accountants show up on the fifth step,
yeah,
and
yeah.
and
They
and
got to
they
be
don't
head stars.
understand. They don't understand how far they are in this relationship, and they didn't have to work very hard to get there. So how do they take the next step to get their worth?
Well, I think it depends a little bit on what's stopping them. One of the things that I see a lot in this space is a real discomfort with the even the idea of selling and sales. That
Mm,
it, even if you say like, what do you think about sales? My guess is a number of folks that might be listening to this have a pretty negative reaction to that.
hmm.
And I think our own antipathy for what we believe that might be creates discomfort and creates self-limiting beliefs that get in our way. And I define sales very simply, which is helping somebody get what they want. Helping them get what they want. We're not manipulating anyone. We're not trying
Right.
to convince them of anything. We're helping them get what they want. And if we stay true to that mission, taking that next step from the fifth rung to the sixth gets so easy because there's not trash in the way.
Right, right. Help me validate this because another of my coaches, uh, one of the many gifts out of that program was just what you said. People say sales. Ooh, it feels icky. I don't recall a salesperson, but he said there are stage, and so check this against your science and brain
Yeah.
science. There are stages of the buying process,
Mhm.
and you have to touch every one, and you have to touch them in the right order.
Yeah.
He labeled it curiosity, about the outcomes,
Yeah.
uh, empowerment as or is this the right time? Are you the right person? Can you make this decision? What's the value to you? What's the urgency? And does it feel right?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. There's other ways to put that, but you're talking about a pretty classic sort of marketing funnel slash sales process. And I agree that it's got to be done. You can't skip steps. If you do, you do so at your peril. And if they're done out of order, weird things happen. And by weird things, I mean, if we presume too much familiarity or too much knowledge before we've earned the trust, then customers' guards go up because people love to buy, but they hate to be sold to. And as soon as we start talking to them about our solution and we haven't even asked them anything about their situation yet, we're presuming something we haven't earned the trust to presume. And I think that, so that's what I really like about that approach. I will mention, because this word I love is curiosity. There's a book by Patrick Lencioni, famous business author, called Getting Naked. And in that book, he talks, oh, you love that book? Do you love that book as much as I do?
I,
He talks so much about questions and about showing up with curiosity, not with predefined assumptions or beliefs about what's going to serve your customers. And that is all people want, is to be listened to and to be helped. If you're having a sales meeting, they have a problem and they're willing to help, they're willing to consider you helping them solve it. And
the
we
first
can't
step.
do that if we don't ask the right questions and enough of them. So showing up curious is
Have you
that's
done any mediation training?
mm-mm, no.
No, I did because I was going to
Okay.
be I was going to be a divorce financial planner. But the
Okay.
problem is if you come in as a mediator, you sign an oath that says you won't work with them. So that business model didn't work. But I did the 30 hours of training,
Uh-huh.
and I've learned it's like a blocking and tackling. It feels so stupid to say it, but just say, do you feel listened to? Do you feel heard?
Yeah.
I mean, how
Do you think I
clumsy.
got this right? Did I capture what you're sharing with me? Just checking
Yeah,
in.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And people like it wakes them up. They said, wow, I've never been asked that. And it seems like he really wants the true answer.
Right.
Anyway, so something else. Let's start to wrap this up because I know we've all got obligations, right? It was what are the steps? What can we do? You have a tool already built that your lead magnet, if you will, to get people to know more about you because this may be the first time they've ever met you. Uh, that can ask those questions, peel back uh, uh, that must have felt tough. You said you got that question library
Yeah.
because, oh, here it was. Here it is. The idea I had, how do we coach CPAs to have fewer, deeper relationships?
Well, that's a little outside my lane, because that's really about customer relationship management more than pricing per se. But I think where it touches pricing is um, rigorous examination of where customers actually derive value from you, and where are we overserving for that value, and where are we're swimming around in depth when that's not what's called for, or if depth is what's called for, are we making sure we're charging adequately for it? So to me, it's about an audit. I'll use a tax word, an audit of the level of service that we're really providing, that is real, and is that what's really necessary or not?
Well, I'm an advocate of, you might tell, because a lady named Dominique Molina that teaches has a certified tax pro program. Uh, when she shared that she only had 20 clients and they pay her 50 grand a year. Really? Is that possible? So here's a CPA with $1 million firm and only 20 clients. And the if you're working at the right level, it's really, really easy to deliver $50,000 of value.
Yeah.
And the what's lost in the scurrying of this hamster wheel of compliance that accountants are on, the big one in the spring and the small one in the fall, which then creates a roller coaster of cash flow because they've been pricing piecework essentially.
Right.
Uh,
Instead of business management tool, which is what a great CPA is for the business owner.
go a little deeper there and we'll chop it off. What
Yeah,
do you mean business management tool?
I think I'm a numbers person, and I'm in my QuickBooks, every week, and I know my numbers quite well, but I don't have the training and the expertise that my CPA has. And if we talk in April and in October, then I'm not making the right decisions for my business, not only for tax liability, but just broader financial planning that affects my children and my legacy and my gifting and everything. And so I think for me, my relationship with my CPA is much more than about getting the right documents filed in April. It's a business management tool for me.
Let's hand that torch to the CPAs.
Yeah.
Casey, thanks so much.
Oh, it's a delight.
Well, I just love it that you had any experience with CPAs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Because when I read Fearless Pricing, I said, okay, so she's talking to sales teams. But I'm typically dealing with, a firm leader, a relationship manager handling all you need to do to create $1 million or $2 million of revenue.
Yeah.
Of not they've
Not
typically
running a sales team of widget sellers or anything. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks so much. We'll see you around the campus. Bye-bye.
Thank you.